ladies and gentlemen, it has been 5 days since the preliminary report prepared by the AAIB was made public. And all we know so far is that the AI-171 Boeing 787 Dreamliner has crashed. Nobody has given us the reason why, because the fuel switches were cut off, but who was responsible for doing this is certainly not clear from this report. Was it manual error or a mechanical error? Was it a software error that led to this? But unfortunately, so far, only hypothesis and conspiracy theory fill that blank. The latest version comes from the Wall Street Journal, a US-based publication. Its latest report has stated that it was the commander who pulled the switches, and whilst the first officer panicked, the commander reacted calmly. Citing a black box recording of dialogue between the two pilots, it says that it was Captain Sumit Sabharwal who turned off the switches that controlled the fuel flowing into the plane's two engines. Remember, the AAIB's official report has not named any pilot as responsible for flipping the fuel switches. It has also given only 2 lines of the pilot's exchange conversation, but not attributing which sentence was said by which. So how does the Wall Street Journal attribute its information to people familiar with the matter? US pilots and safety experts tracking the probe? All this clearly paints a rather sinister picture, taking the focus away from the aircraft pilots. The AAIB is dismissing this as selective and unverified reporting, and Federation of Indian Pilots has said assigning blame before a thorough probe is premature and irresponsible. But the allegations leave everyone fuming. Why is it that such blatant leaks are going on and they are putting these blames from tens of thousands of miles away when the confidentiality of the report is something that neither the Ministry of Civil Aviation has commented on nor the DGCA? The question is, when the American media is just so ready to blame the pilots, is it really because they want to save the US-based companies, Boeing as well as General Electric, the manufacturer of the engines, and therefore these pilots now become soft targets? That's the question, and that's what we want to debate on the Newshour tonight. And joining me tonight is Suhail Seth, columnist. Also joining me, Dr. Sumit Susisalan, member of the Ministry of Civil Aviation. Joining us this evening, Captain Ehsan Khalid, ex-airline captain and instructor and examiner, veteran IAF pilot as well. But my first question goes to Captain C.S. Randhawa, President of the Federation of Indian Pilots. And Captain C.S. Randhawa, I want to ask you, there are all kinds of theories that are going. Some talking about a depression and a psychiatric treatment that Captain Sabharwal was going through. Wall Street Journal has even attributed the fact that it was Captain Sabharwal who moved the fuel switch off and surprised the second flight officer actually asking the question. When AAIB hasn't thrown any light, how are all of these speculations being made, number one? And number two, is this really a sinister plot? Because American newspapers, foreign publications are going on blaming the pilots. They want to save their own companies?
Good evening, Navika and panelists and the viewers. I would like to, what you correctly mentioned and narrated, that is exactly what our stand has been from the Federation of Indian Pilots. And we are deeply pained by today's report on the Wall Street Journal, which has picked up this article from Reuters. And we are sending a legal notice to Reuters that is in Bandra East. How have you come up with this conclusion when there is no mention of such things in the preliminary report? Secondly, the way the AAIB has gone about the investigation in the CVR, the cockpit voice recorder, they should have given the synopsis right from the time the aircraft started, or it was pushed back. The full synopsis should have been given. We don't know what happened in the taxiing, what happened during backtrack of the aircraft, what happened during the takeoff. Were there any abnormalities in the engine parameters? After takeoff, they just said one pilot has told the other pilot, "Have you switched off the engine?" The other pilot said no. These things do not happen in the cockpit. There is a set procedure which we teach the pilots. I have been an examiner for 35, 40 years. I have been training pilots in the Indian Air Force and in Air India. And our pilots, I would tell you one thing, are one of the best pilots in the world, whether they are in military or civil. The government needs to stand up and refute all these charges which the foreign media is picking up against the pilots. And I strongly object.
Well said, Captain Randhawa, and I agree with you. But Dr. Sumit Susilan, I want to ask you, why is the government just so silent? No statement from the DGCA, no statement from the Ministry of Civil Aviation, and speculation running rife. I completely agree that the initial report that has come out actually creates more confusion than it answers questions. There are identifications that are being made by the Wall Street Journal report where Captain Sabharwal is reported to have said something, Captain Kundar is saying something. I want to ask you, when none of these conversations have been identified in the report, where is the foreign media, number one, picking up these things? Number two, why is the AAIB not transparent enough to put the entire conversation out there? Because the CDR is very much present there. And the question is, why are we putting the pilots, literally speaking, under the bus?
I would like to say that the Honorable Minister of Civil Aviation, Mr. Rammohan Naidu ji, even the MOS, Mr. Muhammad Mahol, had came multiple times on screen and given the statement very clearly that this is a preliminary report. On the basis of preliminary report, you can't come up with a result. You know, we have to wait for the final call on this thing.
That is 1 year, sir, or more.
That's the protocol. At least 6 months. At least 6 months we need to go through every recording. And as you are saying that you need a recording. See, we have some of the document which can't be revealed to the public. We have the recording.
They've been revealed to the Wall Street Journal.
The Wall Street Journal are giving their own thoughts. It's their thought. It's not anything documented. Definitely, that's the responsibility of the media to talk to them. The Indian media should talk to them from where you got this information. Because the ministry had never revealed any information.
They're quoting NTSB officials. And these officials were part of the investigation of the AAIB, is what they have quoted. So running away and covering up is not going to make matters any simpler. People want transparency. If they can identify who said what in the cockpit, so he'll say it. Do you not think it's time that we knew it too? And why should only a snatch of 2 sentences be put off? After all, this flight was in the air for only 32 seconds. How long can that conversation be? So for 32 seconds, why is the entire conversation not put out? Preliminary report, can it be a fig leaf of creating such confusion and targeting the pilots?
Let me tell you a couple of things which are unpalatable. I totally agree with the first panelist, the gentleman who was an examiner. Boeing is now using their playbook of hiring lobbyists, feeding Western media to denigrate and damage the Indian aviation ecosystem. I'm saying it on your program. The decent thing has been done by India. And now let me tell you what the decent thing has been. Number one, the Air Accident Investigation Bureau has completed its preliminary investigation. For those idiots who don't understand English and don't know the meaning of preliminary, send them back to school. Preliminary means it is not final, number one. Number two, as you very rightly asked, why has the entire conversation not been published? How do we know there was a conversation beyond those? You and I don't know. We are not investigators. We are not the experts. Number three, if you see, Navika, the crash, the horrific tragedy happened on June 12th. After that, starting on June the 18th till today, and we are on the 17th of July, for a month, there has been selective media reportage, all of Western origin, targeting only the pilots. Have any of these jokers in Wall Street Journal questioned Boeing? No. What has Air India done? What has N. Chandrasekaran, who, by the way, spoke to my mind, and I know a thing or two about branding, and I know a thing or two about television. Chandra, when he spoke to you, spoke from his heart, with decency, dignity, bearing in mind not only the pilots, the crew, also bearing in mind the tragedy and the onslaught of grief on the victims. If there was anything to hide, you think they couldn't hide? You think Tata Sons can't employ lobbyists and people to handle a PR? The thing here, Navika, is there is a process to any accident. Ask any of these three gentlemen here. That process has been followed by the government of India. I'm proud of that. But you still have people. Some chap called Prashant Dhalla has given an interview. Apparently he was some flight operations director of DGCA. Ranganathan, who has behaved in the most abominable, irresponsible manner. I'm ashamed that this man was even a captain of in an airline. He has thrown his colleagues under the bus without any facts, without any validity, without any verification. These are the people, they are the Mir Jafars of this country.
We are now 5 days after the report has come out, and I'm asking these questions simply because the Western media, and we don't live in cuckoo land, we live in the real world, and the Western media is quoting which pilot said what. Isn't it important for us to know that, not just the Western media? And Captain Ehsan Khalid, I want to ask you if those two sentences can be attributed to each of those pilots, how come we don't know about it, number one? And number two, has this created more confusion, more blame game, rather than giving clarity? Because even in a preliminary report, confusion could have been avoided and clarity could have been given, or keep the entire statement out of the purview of the preliminary report. Do you think it's right for the government to say that, oh, we've done this job, this is preliminary, now wait for 1 year? People are going to have questions. Families of those who have lost their loved ones do have questions.
Okay, ma'am. Let's face fact that Wall Street Journal has better information than me and you. They knew AIB report 48 hours before us. So the only thing that we know is that we can't keep it confidential. Either we should be totally confidential or it should be totally open. It cannot be open for Wall Street Journal and foreign media and Boeing, and absolutely confidential from Times of India, FIP and Pilot Me and others. Okay. So it should be a level playing ground for everyone to come to their own conclusion if there is no conclusion. Now, it's nobody's case that there is a huge pressure on the government, on the AIB and DGCA from the dead pilots and their families to keep their talk secret. Okay, there is no compulsion from the dead pilots' business ventures and their economic interest to keep the investigation absolutely ironclad and away from the public. On the contrary, the people who are representing dead pilots' interests, maybe the FIP, Captain Reddy, ALPA members, they want it to be released. Let everything come out in the open. If it is pilot error, so be it. We accept it. Pilot error is something that is acceptable all across the world. An honest mistake is an honest mistake. But if you don't give out the details in the public, and then there are people like Captain Steve and all who are talking about mass murder theory and there are criminal investigations, I think it is nonsense. Now I'll tell you the factual position. Now I'm a pilot with 40 years of experience. Okay, I'm member of maybe 20 WhatsApp groups which is going berserk on this thing. They will not now accept even the voice recording, because the general feeling is that time is just being taken to probably match the voice. This is the general thing. Okay, if you come out with everything in the open, you so be it. Boeing or GE,
Yes,
from the
in fact, the preliminary report says nothing wrong with Boeing, nothing wrong with the engine, nothing wrong with the operator, that is Air India, and therefore no recommendations for anybody. So I want to ask you, Captain Randhawa, then you've known Captain Sabharwal. I understand you. I'm coming back to you. You've known Captain Sabharwal. I want to ask you, Captain Randhawa. Are we talking about, because the mention here in reports is about pilot switching off. Which means it was deliberate. No. Was it deliberate? No. Do you see any, and the stories that are coming out of psychiatric treatment, a man in depression? What is all of this? How do you remember Captain Sabharwal?
Navika, I have known Captain Sabharwal for 30 years. I did his Airbus 310 part of his command training. So I know him quite well. And I knew his father also, who worked in DGCA. So as far as Captain Sabharwal, he was a very soft-spoken, a very good professional, and never had any drinks or smoke or drugs in his life. He has never done all those things, never party. Okay, he was a thorough professional and a very, very straightforward and a soft-spoken person who looked after his aged parents. And that is the agony. The father who's almost 90 years old, and today, if he's getting the news that his son has taken 260 lives, he will die 100 deaths a day.
Bang on.
So what I'm trying to put across over here, that to the other panelists also, that it is targeting the pilot community is not the correct thing to do. And the government of India should stand by these reports which are being propagated by the Western media. I'll take you back to the Sully accident in New York. That pilot was alive to defend himself. Otherwise, the FAA wanted to blame him. That why did he not land the aircraft at Newark? He was alive to defend himself. Today, you have people who are dead, who cannot
Absolutely.
fight for themselves.
And there seems to be a toolkit at work which is looking at business interests. Who will look after our own countrymen, our own pilots who literally have been put under the bus? I understand that nobody can jump to conclusions. But the fact is, silence of the DGCA, silence of the Ministry of Civil Aviation is not helping matters. Not helping matters because their silence and the vociferous toolkit operating from the United States of America is destroying people's faith in Indian aviation. It is, as biggest stakeholders of the aviation sector, our duty here in India to stand up and put the spotlight on the truth. That is the only thing that will help the cause of mankind. We leave it at that. Thank you very much to all my panelists for joining me on this debate.